Star Wars Destiny, a Star Wars card and dice game published by Fantasy Flight Games, and it is a two-player game, so it's a duel between characters, so I should say teams of characters from the Star Wars universe, and it is built on the model of Magic the Gathering and so many other indefinitely expandable games of that ilk. That is, you need to buy 2 starter sets to start playing the game, and there are 2 now that have been released, Rey and Kylo. Maybe other sets will be released later. And so you can have Kylo versus Ren. I guess you could buy 2 Kylo or 2 Rey, and so you will have Rey versus the Rey from the Mirror Universe, Kylo and Mirror Kylo sort of thing. But then, if you want to expand the game and customize it, you will need to buy booster packs where you will find cards and dice in random combinations. So if you're a teenager, then you'll go to your friendly local game store and you'll start trading cards and dice. But if you're an adult like me, you don't have that kind of time, so you will simply sink a huge amount of money, create a huge collection with a lot of redundancy, and that's at the point you'll have buyer's guilt and you'll sell the whole collection, you'll feel very bad about yourself, and that's a fictional scenario that never happened to me with any of my games, I swear. Star Wars Destiny. Let's see how it works. So, in a starter set, you will find a deck of cards, 2 cards representing the characters in your team. For Kylo, we have Kylo and Stormtrooper of the First Order. For Rey, we have Rey and Finn. Dice for the characters, and then another pool of dice that will not be in play at the beginning of the game. You also find a set of 20 cards, a player aid, and a card representing a terrain. Each character, each player shows to the duel with a terrain card. Then at the beginning of the game, the players roll dice to determine who gets to go first and to choose the terrain that is used in that confrontation. Suppose in this game we use the Starship Graveyard, and then the other card is simply removed from the game. It is not used. Only one player gets to use their terrain card for that game. The other player, however, since as a bonus or to balance the fact that the player selected the terrain and goes first, gets 2 shields assigned to their characters. Oh yes, in the starter packs you also you also find tokens. There are tokens that represent shields, resources, and damage to the characters. The characters have a number of health points, and when those go down to 0, the character is out of the game. Here you have a description, a list of the symbols that are on the dice associated with that character, and then characters may have special abilities, special ways in which they use the symbols associated with their dice. You have a hand of 5 cards that come from your deck. And, well, once the game starts, players will alternate taking actions one at a time. I take an action, you take an action, and so on and so forth. These are the actions. You may play a card from your hands, and some cards are events, then you simply play them and you resolve the effect. Incidentally, here you see a number which represents the cost in resources that you need to pay to be able to play that card. Many events have 0. More powerful cards that have longer lasting effects do cost, and they may cost quite a bit. So one of your actions may be, one of your possible actions may be to play a card. If it's an event, you play it, resolve it, and that's it. Cards, however, may also be support. Supports will go in your play area by your characters face up, and they will stay there until you use them. And using a support is an action, like in so many other games. You exhaust the card, you turn it just to represent the fact, to indicate the fact that you did use it. Some supports, however, also come with their own dice, and I'm trying to look for one, and of course I can't find them because they're here. I put them on the I put them down incidentally. This support, for example, also comes with its own die, in which case you simply take the corresponding die and you place it on the card. Also, you may have cards that are upgrades, and when you get an upgrade, you associate it, you attach it with a character. And upgrades also may have dice, in which case you take the corresponding die and, you guessed it, you add it to the pool of the dice that already come with the characters. So the characters will accumulate, will collect dice as the game progresses if you add that kind of upgrades to them. So play a card from your hands, one of the possible actions. What else can you do? You can activate the cards. When you, that is, you can activate supports or characters that you have there. If you activate, the idea is that if you activate a support that doesn't have a die, you resolve the effect and that's it. If you activate a character or a support that has a die, then you roll all of the dice associated with that character or support. Which means if you activate a character that has an upgrade, you roll the intrinsic dice plus all the dice from the upgrade or upgrades. So you exhaust the character just to indicate that you did roll the dice, and you place the dice in front of you. Now those dice are available, can be spent, but resolving the dice is again an action. And when you use your action to resolve dice, you can only resolve one type of symbol. So for example, if I have multiple symbols giving me resources, of course I'll choose a side that doesn't have resources. Yeah, that's the force thing. If I chose dice that have resources, for example, I want to resolve the resource dice, then I can resolve these two together as one. If there are different actions, then I need to resolve them individually. So for one action I could resolve this die, later for another action I could resolve this die, and later again for another action I could resolve this die. When you resolve a die, you put it back on the card where it came from to indicate that you used it. This is why it's so important to remember to exhaust characters, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell if a character has all of the dice on their card because they have used them all or because they haven't used them yet. In general, you can do it, but maybe sometimes there are some cards with supports that you forget if you did not exhaust them. Just exhaust them, that's what I'm trying to say. What are those symbols for? Luckily enough, we have the nice player rate, the double-sided player rate, that can help us because there's quite a bit. Range damage and melee damage, simply, and it's precisely what it looks like. The number by that symbol is the number of damage that you can inflict on the opponent. Melee is that the difference between melee and damage exists only because it may be modified by certain game effects. Maybe there is a card that the opponent has that can block melee damage, and another card that can block range damage, and not vice versa. So, for example, if Kylo has rolled this symbol here, and maybe also this symbol here, so that's, oh, I see as Rey that he rolled those dice. He has a lot of melee damage coming from me. Luckily enough, I have this card. I pay the cost, I play, and then I can remove all one opponent's dice showing melee damage, and then simply those count as spent. So that's the interesting effect that comes from the delay between when you roll the dice and when you use the dice. You have to time things well because the opponent may choose that delay to play cards that affect your dice. Other symbols that may come from the dice may allow you to turn a die to a new side, to force the opponent to discard resources, give shields. Each shield obviously absorbs an incoming hit. Force the opponent to discard cards, gain resources. Blank is bad, and special simply refers to the ability indicated on the card. So that symbol changes meaning depending on the die it is on, and each die that has that symbol will have a card that explains what that symbol means for that die, for that character. You can use a card action, and also another important thing, speaking about the actions that you can perform, you can discard a card to re-roll a die. This is very important because you may get stuff with cards that you don't need and you rolled a lot of blanks. Then it's really nice to have that option to minimize or to reduce to some extent the luck factor, which is, however, very important when we're talking about dice and cards. What do you expect that's going to be? part of it. Also, you may choose to claim the battlefield. Remember the card that we talked about, the battlefield? So a player can move the battlefield to their play area by taking the action of claiming the battlefield, and that player also gets to resolve the claim effect indicated on the battlefield. However, when you do so, you pass for the rest of the turn. So make sure you don't do it thoroughly, because you won't be able to perform other actions until the turn is over. The overall turn is over when both players choose to pass in a row. At the point you have the keep phase, when players receive new resources, refresh their exhausted characters, and can discard cards and then get cards back in their hand up to a hand of 5, and that completes the turn. The game continues until one of the players eliminates all of the characters of the opponent, that is by bringing their number of health points down to 0. Then the player that destroys the cards of the opponent is the winner. You may also win if your opponent has no cards in their hand and in their deck, in which case they lose and you win. This game to me is a good filler. In the filler category, I don't have any problem at all, because it plays fairly quickly. You can teach it easily, travels well, you can carry it around. If you just carry 2 base sets with you, maybe without the box, simply put them in little baggies. And the back and forth is really fast, and to me actually that's one of the best things about this game. That's you don't have analysis paralysis, because you have a pool of 4, 5, 6 dice to choose from if you have rolled them all at the same time, meaning if you roll them without using them, so now you have that pool. Otherwise, maybe you have 2, 3 dice, and maybe some are blanks. You have a range of options that, when you read them from the list, seems almost overwhelming, almost more than you expect from a filler, but in actuality, in many cases, not all of those options will be open to you. Maybe you do not have resources, so you cannot play certain cards. Your dice are excellent, so you do not need to worry about spending resources, spending cards to reroll dice, that sort of things. So you have a nice little cozy range of options, not too large, not too small, very handleable, and those options allow you to perform actions very quickly. I play a die, I spend a die, I give you a point of damage, you use a shield, done. Now it's your turn, you roll your dice, fine. Now it's my turn, I'm gonna spend this die to activate that effect. Now it's your turn and you spend that die. I roll my die, you play a card. It's really back and forth. To me, I mean, the pace almost feels like it's a Twitch video game, one of those dual video games where, yes, it's about timing. I see that you are going to hit me from above, then I'm gonna drop down and punch you in the knee. It almost feels like those two-player 2D dual type of games, Street Fighter type of games with dice and cards and Star Wars characters. As strange as it sounds, that's the kind of feel that I had, just because of the incredibly fast pace and incredibly fast back and forth, and how you need to react to what the opponent does. Not quickly like in video games in the sense of reflexes, but yes, if you roll dice and I don't pay attention to what you have, I may miss the opportunity to play an effect that would block you, prevent you from using a certain effect. So actually it's about fast response, fast again in the discrete subdivision of time that you have in a dice and card game, as opposed to a video game where simply the best move goes to whoever presses the button first. But here you do have short turns and you use them to react quickly. So there is a very strong interaction. To me, these are the strong elements of the design. If you play with the base sets, probably the game will not feel fresh for very long. I don't think it will take a lot of replays before the game will feel a little stale. So you have small decks, which is good. That's another advantage here. You do not have huge decks, so if you do customize your deck, you know what you get. It's not like you spend a lot of time thinking about a certain card and you don't see it for a couple of games because the deck is so thick. And there is this interesting tension that comes from the fact that you can burn cards and you can regret it later if you are stuck with a thin deck and no cards at the end. You may lose the game because of that. But sometimes you're like, I only drew events, I only have a lot of events in my hand, I like to burn them, so I also can get some rerolls, I can get some support, so I can get nice pools of dice out there. So there's a nice element there. But again, that nice element that comes from the fact that the decks work as countdown clocks also means that the decks will not have much variety. After a couple of games, you know all the cards that are in there and that are going to come up, and that's probably when you will start wanting to customize the game, and that is when you lose me. That is when I'll say, thank you very much, that was fun, and I leave the room, I go home and I play something else. Because you may know this from other reviews of mine, I have a problem. I simply don't like many aspects of this model that has been made popular by Magic the Gathering. I'm happy that Magic the Gathering is there because brick and mortar stores have benefited immensely from the industry of second-hand cards. So I'm glad that people like it, I'm glad that people are spending a lot of money, and so we still have brick and mortar stores. I just don't want to be part of it. I'll enjoy the benefits. I'll let you do all the work in that sense. I don't have to, after all. So I don't like the idea that if you spend more money than your neighbor, you have a better deck and you may have better chances of winning the game. Philosophically, I dislike it immensely. There's still ways in which I play these games. For example, Pokemon the card game, my daughters and I went, we bought a nice block of cards, but that's the family stash, and then we simply build our decks. We draw from a common resource, and we have a lot of fun doing that. Another case which is not entirely similar is Lord of the Rings the card game. In that game you do not get random booster packs, so you get doubles that you want to trade, stuff like that. And also, most importantly, it's a cooperative game. So if I build a better deck than you and then we play together against a common enemy, that's not a problem. I built an awesome deck and you built a weak deck. Fun! Because now your weak deck is presenting a nice challenge for me. Thanks to your weak deck, my deck of me and myself, a proficient gamer, is not that strong, so I'm gonna have a nice challenge. And you built a weaker deck, that's fine. You benefit from playing with somebody who has a stronger deck, so you still have some chances of winning the game. Cooperative, no problem, but competitive, when blind booster packs, it bothers me. So I'm not going to expand this game. Unfortunately, I decided this is a game where the starter packs really are starter packs. There are games where the starter packs have enough meat in them that you can pretty much be happy with those. I don't think I can be happy with these very much, and I don't want to expand them. So to me, this is a game that, in my collection, in my experience, doesn't have much of a future. I'm simply sharing my experience out there without making claims of objectivity, because in case you have a similar philosophy, then you know what to expect. There are games that you buy the starter set and you can play them for quite a while. This is not one of them. This will need to be expanded, I think, to remain fresh and interesting. So if you're just looking for a game and you're not into the entire collection aspect, I think this is a game that will not be all that interesting to you. Maybe you're a Star Trek completist, you need a Star Wars completist, you need everything that has a lightsaber on it to be able to sleep at night, then you won't even be watching this review. You have bought the sets already. So what is Star Wars Destiny going to be, in my experience, in the future? A filler that I'll take out a couple of times, so maybe from one time to the other I kind of forgot some of the things. It will look fresh again. If I'm introducing new players, so this is a game that is easy. So if I'm introducing casual players, casual gamers, the Star Wars theme is interesting, it's attractive. Also, people that may not be playing board games much. It's a simple, quick game that I can teach even to like young gamers, and from time to time it'll be fun. But it will not be something I want to expand. To play more often, I will need to expand it, customize it, spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time. And this also is one of those games, I think, that when you get serious about the customization, the meta game may totally take over the game. Because if you customize a large deck in which you may not be able to use all the cards that you have in there, then individual skills may still balance for a difference in quality of deck customization. But with such thin decks, it feels to me this is one of those games that two players that are serious about customization, spent a lot of time creating the perfect deck. They could show the decks to each other before the game starts, they have a look, and they can simply decide there and then who is the winner without play, which to me is the ne plus ultra of metagame decadence perversion. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, otherwise I wouldn't be sharing these opinions. Star Wars Destiny is not a bad game for anybody with whatever philosophy of gaming out there. This is a good filler with probably not much replay value. For those that do not like the expandable model that we have here, I think this is going to be a pass for most of you that share this vision of gaming and life with me. For other people, maybe this is a big draw. Yes, I can have a game where I can trade dice and cards and this kind of stuff. Then, well, you know what the game is about. So you have been warned or you've been advised. It all depends on your philosophy about the model the game is based on. Not a bad game, not a fantastic one, not a bad game at all, but just one based on a model that I'm not particularly interested in.